As a kid growing up, I had a pretty solid family life. Two brothers and a mom and a dad. For me, I honestly don't think I was that bad of a kid or a young adult. I spent my fair share getting in trouble and having encounters with the police departments. I had excellent parents. My father always instilled good. He raised me to be a good person, and my mom did the same. I know my own experience dealing with alcoholism as a native man. Youth, when I was younger, a lot of that was conditioned by my environment and the music I listened to, and the native youth that I hung out with. I remember at one point in time, looking back at it, it's really ridiculous to think that my friend told me it was Budweiser because you deserve to enjoy what every Indian should drink regularly or something like that. It was a huge acronym, but it was targeted, and there was other native kids that thought this was cool. This is what we should be doing. We should be drinking. I do think there's conditionings and the way people are brought up and what they are, the music they're listening to, the friends they grow up around. I think this all conditions the youth to functioning in a way and acting out in a way that can get somebody hurt. Where I've had bad encounters with the police department, and on both them situations, it had a lot to do with the way I was functioning. In one instance, I had my friends coaxing me in the background to run. I got in a fight in a bar, and the security had shoved me outside of the bar onto the street, and I got approached by some police officers on the street, and I was hanging out with some friends, and they thought it was funny that the officers had approached me, and the officers kind of started talking to me because it was obvious how drunk I was. So the police department, these officers started talking to me and asking me what was going on. Standing behind the officers was a friend of mine, and he kept looking at me, and he was whispering, he was going, "Run, run." Every time he thought the officers weren't looking, and I finally acknowledged him, and I said, and he knew I was ready to run, so I was gonna run. I bent down and tied my shoes up tight, and I think that was just a cue to the officers, hey, look, I'm gonna run, you better catch me. As soon as I stood up and got ready to bolt, the officer wrapped me up real quick and pushed me against the wall pretty rough like and put the handcuffs on me. I know one reoccurring thing that I think about oftentimes when I look back at some of the embarrassing situations that I'd been in and the times I'd been arrested and how childish I had acted. I look at all that stuff and I think about how embarrassed I am about it. And one of the things that really stands out to me is there was a time where I had been arrested and I was looking at the officers had me pinned down and they're threatening to tase me. I'm being non-compliant. I'm acting extremely childish. And you know, at the time I thought I was being a big tough guy or whatever. I'm drunk. This is what I do. Looking back at it, it's an extremely embarrassing situation. The officer that arrested me and took me in that evening, he treated me with some respect, and he told me, he said, you know, Jared, I've seen you in the community when you're not doing this. He goes, you have an issue with alcohol. You're a good person. You're not who you are tonight, basically. And that meant the world to me. That definitely was one of the changing points in my life. You know, I think more positive encounters like that, maybe if the police department were to instill a curriculum where you know, kind of like, I remember watching Cops when I was younger, and the cops would go out and they would actually talk to people and actually cared about people on some of these Cops episodes, and it was really neat. And it doesn't seem like that style of policing is that common anymore. I had another interaction years ago with a member of a police department here in Lincoln. I pulled out of a parking lot of a business and I didn't have my headlights on, and this officer pulled me over. As I pulled over to the side of the road, maybe just a split second after I got on the main road, I turned my headlights on and he pulled me over. He asked for my license and registration, and he took my information, went back to his car, and he came back to my vehicle, and he seemed pretty urgent, and he said, I need you to step out of the car. And I just laughed at him. I said, you gotta be kidding. And he said, no, I need you to step out of the vehicle, please. And he proceeded to put his hand on his hip like he was ready to use either his taser or his gun. And he said, I need you to get out of the vehicle now. And he was very curt about it. I stepped out of the vehicle, and he pinned me to the hood and took some stuff out of my pickup and said they were weapons and different stuff. He took a pipe out of my truck and said it was a weapon. I said, it's not a weapon. It's part of my jack. It's the lever to pump my jack. Eventually, one of the higher up officers, I do believe it was his captain at that time, showed up on the scene, and it turned out that he had pulled me over, and what he had found when he ran my name and registration was that I had a $40 parking ticket from 5 or 10 years prior. You know, and the thing was, I don't know if I could have been compliant in that particular situation. I think the officer had determined after seeing the $40 ticket that maybe there was some other law that I broke. I think definitely if I were to raise a child, the child would benefit from some of the teachings that I would have to teach. I'm confident that I would be able to instill some sort of good belief system in a person. I would probably advise them, if you were to be pulled over by a police officer at some point in time in your life, you need to function respectfully and be compliant with the requests of the officer. They do have a very dangerous job, and they put themselves, their lives on the line on a daily basis doing what they do. So they do function in a very high stress environment almost all of the time, so you have to be considerate of that.